the other undercard fights, but the one that caught a lot of people's attention was the pro debut of Campbell Hatton, Ricky Hatton's son, against Jesus Ruiz. And I will say this. First of all, brief recap. Campbell Hatton won 40-36 on Victor Laughlin's scorecard, the referee scorecard, because that's how it's done in the UK, against Jesus Ruiz. Jesus Ruiz has not won a fight as a pro. He is now 0-11. So, okay, there's a lot to dissect with Campbell Hatton. Let's start with the pros. Campbell Hatton's a very good, speedy fighter. His hands are fast. There's a lot in, and I think that is something that you can build upon. I think that is something that you can work with. His left hand is very good. He likes working to the body, and I think that's something prospects don't do enough. So I think that's already something to kind of build upon. But those few good things, and again, you can work with that. He is a long-term development project. He doesn't have that much of a amateur career, and we're talking 2021, 2022, maybe 2023. You just put Campbell Hatton out of TV or very deep into these TV undercards that Matchroom has. He's not ready for big fights. He's not going to get hot-shotted into big domestic fights in a dozen fights. He's not. You look at Campbell Hatton, his footwork is still a little inconsistent. He needs to tighten up his defense just a little bit. He needs to learn how to pace himself. He was kind of gassing towards the end of the fight. It was a 4-rounder. You can't be gassing after, you can't be tired and exhausted after only 4 rounds if you're going to be a top fighter. His conditioning you need to work on the conditioning a little bit. Pacing, gonna have to work a little bit on that. I will give him a little bit of a break because this is his pro debut. You can tell from the way he was fighting, you can tell he was nervous. He was anxious. He wanted to give off a good first impression. And I get that. And I don't think that this is everything that Campbell Hatton has to offer. I think there might be a couple of tools in his tool bag that he hasn't shown us yet. All he's shown us is he's got a fast left hand and he likes working to the body. That's it. He doesn't have tremendous power since he couldn't knock out a guy who literally was 0-10 in his pro career heading into the fight. But there's some good stuff that you can build upon. I think that there is. I don't know there's a world champion in there. It is impossible to tell. You don't know what you got with Campbell Hatton. But those few positive qualities that Campbell Hatton has as a fighter, those are things that are worth investing, especially when we were talking about the son of Ricky Hatton. Those are things that even Eddie Hearn understands. He's nowhere near ready for big fights or even decent opponents. You're going to have to give him Jesus Ruiz types of opponents for the remainder of the year, maybe even next year. It's going to take him 15 fights at least in order to really give us a sense, at the bare minimum, like 10, 12 fights before we really see what we got with a somewhat more polished and seasoned Campbell Hatton. I think there is some good in Campbell Hatton, and I like some of the stuff he was doing, but the pacing, the conditioning, the loading up too much on the left hand to the body, almost to the point that he was forcing something to happen with that one punch alone. There is a lot that you have to work on, but they're not things that are unfixable. Conditioning, you can do that. You can work on that, and you can improve on that a lot with road work. And I think with a guy like Ricky Hatton and Matthew Hatton and his team, I think that you can do something. I think there are things that are I think there are things to work on, a lot of things to work on, but they're certainly not stuff that are impossible to fix. So we'll see. It's going to take a long time before we see what Campbell Hatton has to offer, but I like what I've seen so far to the point where I can be like, okay, there is something worth in there, but it's that if there's a diamond in that rough is deep. Really, really, really deep. And it's also hard to, it's also hard kind of, living up to Ricky Hatton's name. Ricky Hatton was one of the most popular British world champions in history. And it wasn't the greatest British world champion in history, but he was damn popular. And to be in your father's shadow, especially when he is, a part of your team, as well as Matthew Hatton, there's a lot of pressure on Campbell Hatton. If I'm Eddie Hearn, I wouldn't feature him in a lot of big TV spots. I wouldn't do that for another couple of years. I would keep him off TV if it's possible. I know that that's kind of hard to do with like the entertainment and media aspect of everything, but for the sake of his development, you have to keep Campbell Hatton off TV. You don't need to add any extra pressure while he's still learning the game of boxing, while he's still learning about some of the stuff that he needs to learn in order to be an experienced pro. And putting him out on TV is not going to do him any favors. It's not. More than anything, it's going to expose some of the weaknesses and flaws in Campbell Hatton's game, and there's a few of them. But again, there are things you can work on, there are things you can improve upon, and we'll see. I don't think that this is the end. I don't think this was the best version of Campbell Hatton. I think there were nerves. I think he was nervous. I think he was anxious because it was a pro debut on a big TV spot in Gibraltar. So I am willing to give Campbell Hatton a break. If there's a chance to see Campbell Hatton's fights for the remainder of the year, I think we'll have a better sense of what he can and can't do. But don't rush him. Do not rush him. He needs a lot of fights. He needs years of seasoning before you start throwing him into the fire. He's very raw. He's a very, very long-term development project. But there's something. I don't know what, but there is something you can build upon, and I don't know where that's going to lead. But I think it is interesting to sort of follow what Campbell Hatton does in the near future.